British tennis champ Johanna Konta has bravely confessed something that a lot of mums are probably too embarrassed to. She finds motherhood boring. She would still choose it every day over playing centre court, but she says it has been a really hard transition. And Sophie, this comes as you've actually shared a couple of headlines, haven't you, on your social media this week? One of them, I regret having children. It has stripped the meaning, my life of meaning. And the other, an expert says unmarried women without children are happier than everyone else. Why did you...
Why did I share it?
Yeah.
I just like I think there's a nuance to this conversation that doesn't often get the headlines. I think there's a romanticised... Well, I'm not a mum, I should explain that, but there's often this sort of narrative that exists around if you're a mum, that's your greatest calling in life, perhaps, and that's what we all want and that's what we should all aspire to. And I think as somebody who has always felt indifferent to being a mum, it's nothing to do with my disability or anything, I just don't really want to be a mum. And I've never really understood why it's romanticised in that way, because certainly when I've seen my girlfriends who've become mums suddenly have these more fractured or complicated relationships with perhaps with themselves, with their partner, that it's disrupted their lives and not necessarily in a good way.
And do you think there's a stigma still about people who choose not to have children?
I think certainly there is. I think what I mean when I share those headlines is I just like that there to be a little bit more, you know, we can add another opinion or another perspective into this idea of motherhood, and it's no bad thing. I'm not saying it's necessarily true in the sense that it will ruin your life or that it's boring. I don't know, I'm not a mum, but I just like that there's these stories being shared. It gives also someone like me who doesn't want to have kids, there's more validation for that, instead of being judged and being, I suppose, sometimes if your choice is questioned,
yeah.
Well, look, some people don't think it's all that it's cracked up to be, and some people do feel that it's not as good as everyone else says, and there's a secret around it, you know? Does that make sense?
It does completely, and I understand your point of view. I used to be a bit judgy, I think, of thinking, it's really odd, why does she not want any children? You know, she's got enough money, she's got a lovely husband, why does she not want any children? And then, of course, having children, I love the bones of my children, of course I do, you know, they're my life. But when I had Matty, I was plunged into a severe hospitalised postnatal depression. And I remember I did an interview once and the headline was, it was the best and worst day of my life. And I was quite horrified by it, but actually there is truth in that. It was the best day because I have these two beautiful children. But did my life change? Absolutely. And I live with clinical depression that may not have happened. I also speak to childless friends now who are not tied to the emotional needs of older children. Those of us with older kids, I think it's harder as they get older because you want to take all the pain away from them. You want them to get every job they go for. You want them to meet the right person. Yeah. And I'm constantly stressed, you know, of when they're travelling away. And I look at my childless friends and they're not. And it used to be, oh, but you'll miss out on having grandchildren. They go, but I didn't want children, let alone grandchildren. So
I think what my point is in sharing those headlines is it's just nice to hear those sides of the story, I think. And it's important.
And I think the word you use, romanticised, is right, because the reality is there's good and bad in everything, and there's all the kind of shades within it, you know, so it's not as if, you know, being a parent is all sugar or indeed all of the other. You know.
And one of my sisters, Denise, she never, ever, ever wanted kids. Even when she was younger, she just knew she never wanted kids. And she spent her whole life defending that decision because people, especially that generation years ago, would be going, well, why don't you want kids? That's really weird why you don't want kids. But she openly admitted, she went, I love everything about my life and I don't want to give any of that up. If she felt it would be more selfish for her to have kids. And then she said, and I'm just going to absolutely spoil rotten all my nieces and nephews. They're going to be my kids that I can hand back when I want to go on holiday.
I mean, I didn't always want kids.
Oh, I did.
Did you? I never gave that a thought till I was 36. Seriously.
Really?
Yeah, that's the truth.
Really?
Yeah. What changed your mind?
Weirdo.
It changed in an instant. What did she say?
Weirdo. No, I did, but some people do. Linda, my sister, always wanted kids and sadly never had them, and she still says it's the biggest regret of her life because she kept waiting for the right time. And I kept saying to her, there's no right time.
No right time, you've got to make it work.
That's what it comes down to.
It's about choice, and we shouldn't judge
And that's why I think stories like that or headlines like that, they just help those of us who've chosen not to kind of go, yeah, see, there are reasons why.
Yeah,
we might
of
not
course.
do this.
Yeah,
Not just
absolutely.
because we're selfish or whatever you want to call us.
Well, we did ask people, is it OK to say that parenting is boring? And you'll be glad to know, Sophie, that a resounding 74% said yes.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, no, it was interesting.